in for a moment, because we're just learning now that decisions on the affirmative action cases have come down. We do not know, again, what the decisions are just yet, but let's go to Laura Coates for that. This, I think, Laura, it is safe to say, is the biggest case facing the court that could have the widest reaching implications.
That is extraordinarily true, and we are all keenly aware of what the consequences could very well be. We know that we do not truly live in a society where race is never a consideration or a factor or thought of.
Black folks, Hispanic folks, step your game up. Step your damn game up. Quit the bitching. Quit the crying. Step your game up. If you don't like the fact that you're getting your ass kicked in college admissions to whites and Asians, then work harder. Work harder. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. The Democrats and the mainstream liberal media, the progressives, the left, they're having a full-blown meltdown right now because the Supreme Court just outlawed racism in college and universities, which, again, apparently we're living in an upside-down world, okay? Remember, the left, the Democrats, liberals, progressives, the race crusaders of America, the people who are supposed to be fighting against systemic racism, right? They are upset that the Supreme Court has outlawed systemic racism, okay? We truly are living in an upside-down world, except this is who the Democrats have always been, okay? They've always been the party of racism, just the party of racism towards whites and Asians, more specifically. Non-racists are celebrating today because we don't have to deal with racism anymore in college admissions. The racists are upset because racism is not allowed, right? Again, it's amazing how that works. Democrats are having a full hood off moment here, right? As again, they're pissed off that the Supreme Court has basically struck down affirmative action. They basically outlawed it.
Yes, we've got a mixture of opinions here. This is one of those ones where we've got a majority opinion, we've got concurrences, we've got dissents. Let me read you a little bit from the majority opinion, which of course will control here, written by the Chief Justice. He says both Harvard and UNC, so again, you've got a public and a private school, but both take federal money. Both programs lack sufficiently focused and measurable objectives warranting the use of race anywhere in their admissions process. That they're unavoidably employing race in a negative manner involving racial stereotyping. That's what these Asian American students had alleged, and lack meaningful endpoints. We've never permitted admissions programs to work in that way, and we will not do so today. They do go on to say, though, at the same time, as all parties agree, nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. So these essays that students will write, possible students, the applicants will write, talking about what their experience has been. The court says, we're not going to rule that out. Of course, people can have discussions about what led them to this point in their life, whatever that is. They go on to say a benefit to a student who overcame racial discrimination, for example, must be tied to that student's courage and determination, or a benefit to a student whose heritage or culture motivated him or her to assume leadership positions, those kinds of things. So basically they say, the universities have too long done the opposite. They've used race in a way that's actually hurt other races. They've concluded wrongly that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges bested, skills built, or lessons learned, but only the color of their skin, and our constitutional history does not tolerate that choice. Let me read you just a little bit from the dissent. This one is written by Justice Sotomayor. She says, the court is standing in the way and rolling back decades of precedent and momentous progress. It holds race can no longer be used in a limited way in college admissions to achieve critical benefits. In holding so, the court cements a superficial role of color blindness as a constitutional principle in an endemically segregated society where race has always mattered and continues to matter. So a clear split between the two sides in this case.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this conservative ruling, I have to mention this because I know a lot of people are going to have an issue with this, and I would love to hear you guys' opinion on this because this is a fascinating part of this ruling. They outlawed it for colleges and universities. However, some aspects of our society that are federally funded can still use it. Like, for example, military academies. And the reason why military academies are still allowed to use it is because the Supreme Court says that it is a matter of national security. Diversity and inclusion is a matter of national security. The conservative Supreme Court ruled, okay? And this is kind of how it went down. there were 35 generals that wrote a brief to the Supreme Court as they were considering these affirmative action cases, basically arguing that diversity was necessary because you do not want a diverse armed forces, but a homogeneous leadership. That is not good for cohesiveness, effectiveness, and readiness of the military, right? That's what they argue. And the conservative Supreme Court said, yeah, you're right, right? It's a matter of national security concern. You need to have a diverse armed forces and a diverse leadership, which again is fascinating, right? It really is fascinating. Again, I just want to throw this in there, okay? I just want to throw that in there because I don't want to mislead people in regards to what the Supreme Court outlawed or what they did outlaw. Not allow for colleges and universities, but allow for military academies, right? So you can still be racist in military academies because apparently if you're not racist, then apparently that is a national security threat, okay? And just to put it in layman's terms so you guys understand exactly what they're really trying to say here, they're basically trying to say that having a mostly white leadership in the military with a diverse armed forces, mainly black and brown people in the armed forces, that is a national security concern, right? That's actually what they're really saying, and the conservative Supreme Court agreed with it, right? So this is not a 100% W here, right? You got to read between the fine lines. I just wanted to mention that to be fair. So on to the Democrats and their meltdown about college admissions, okay? You got Joe Biden, who reacted to this by basically trying to tell students to exploit what Democrats are going to see as a loophole in the Supreme Court's ruling. Take a look.
Where the student grew up and went to high school. It means understanding the particular hardships that each individual student has faced in life, including racial discrimination that individuals have faced in their own lives. The court says, quote, nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an application's discussion of how race has affected his or her life, but be it through discrimination or inspiration or otherwise, end of quote. Because the truth is, we all know it, discrimination still exists in America. Discrimination still exists in America. Discrimination still exists in America.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand the sleight of hand that is being played here by the Democrats. They're saying, well, the Supreme Court ruling says that, well, colleges and universities can consider an applicant's experience in regards to his race if he writes about it in his college essays, okay? So Democrats are basically directing colleges and universities to say, hey, look, if an applicant talks about his race and how his race has affected his life in his college application, then you should consider that, okay? Which, again, kind of is a loophole. What they're basically telling people is that, hey, if you are a minority, then talk about how racism has made it so you have a worse life. That way, colleges and universities can consider that in their admissions process, right? That's kind of a way around it, okay? This is what they're saying. And my counter to that is that if you are white or you're Asian, then maybe it's smart for you to mention how your life has been made harder because of racism, right? Because apparently that's what Democrats are telling colleges and universities to do in order to try to get around this Supreme Court ruling, okay? So I'm not sure what's worse, right? Trying to exploit a loophole, okay, or what they see as a loophole, or the mainstream liberal media fear-mongering, where they try to pretend like colleges and universities are going to go back to segregation and that there won't be any more diversity in colleges and universities anymore just because they can't discriminate against Asians and whites. Take a look.
The reason why affirmative action is a good thing, it is not preferential. It's you're bringing diverse opinions to the table. What Charles and I are bringing to this conversation today is very different than what white former federal prosecutors would be bringing to you today. So it's just the timing that you happen to have these two black former prosecutors here. So it's a sea change. Because what's going to happen, as Charles said, which happened in California, is, look, we're not going to take race into account anymore in our public colleges, and everything will be fine. And as we see, that's not happening. So it is not preferential. Race is one factor. And it's not like, okay, as I said, there were only 3 black people in my law school graduating class. And that probably was affirmative action. But now that schools no longer have to consider race, I fear what will happen and will there be many lawyers who look like Charles and I in the future, or doctors or accountants. It is a problem, and it's not preferential treatment.
Hetty Glaude, you're with us. Your thoughts, if indeed affirmative action is now banned nationwide from the college admission process, what is the impact?
Well, to be honest with you, we will return to elite institutions, more specifically being the space for a particular population, for predominantly white and Asian students. We will begin to see a kind of segregated higher education landscape. And the irony, of course, as I've anticipated this decision, but to hear it, I'm kind of still, I'm trying to manage my emotions. But, this was just one remedy, affirmative action, the only remedy to the legacy of discrimination in admissions in American higher education. Only one remedy. And so here they've taken it away. And so where we find ourselves is we're going to go back to those classes where you had 1, 2, 3. We already had a small percentage of black and brown students in elite institutions. That percentage will get even smaller.
Yeah, so I don't understand what these people don't understand about the idea that you cannot fix racism with more racism, okay? Racism happened in the past. It sucks. But you can't fix what happened in the past with more racism, okay? You're not making it right. Two wrongs don't make a right. I don't understand what these people don't get about that. But again, listen to them talk. They're trying to make it seem like it is the worst thing in the world for students to get in college and universities based off their own merits, if that means more whites and Asians get into these universities, even though they've earned it, right? From a merit standpoint. Look at this statistic right here, right? This is mind-blowing, okay? Harvard applicants in the top academic decile have different chances of admission depending on their race, okay? So these are the top students. If you're a top Asian student, you have a 12.71% chance, okay? Top white student, 15.3%. Hispanics, 31.3%. If you're black, 56.1%. Now again, I thought liberals were all about disparities, right? Racial disparities. This is a racial disparity if I've ever seen one, and they think that this is just. This is right. This is okay. And what these people don't really understand what they're saying, what they're actually really saying, is that black people are dumb, right? That's what they're actually really saying. Black people should be offended by what these people are saying. Because what they're telling black people is that you're so damn dumb that we have to lower the bar for you to get into elite institutions. You can't compete with the whites and the Asians. Okay, they're also saying that about Hispanics as well too. Okay, because look at the Hispanic numbers. They're saying, look, you black and brown people, you're too dumb. You guys are so dumb, we got to lower the bar for you, right? We got to lower the bar. You can't keep up with the whites and Asians intellectually. That's what it sounds like they're saying. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that Hispanic people or black people are too dumb to keep up with Asians and whites, to compete with Asians and whites. In fact, I know Hispanics and black people can compete with Asians and whites. That's why I'm against affirmative action. It's unnecessary. Black folks, Hispanic folks, step your game up. Step your damn game up. Quit the bitching. Quit the crying. Step your game up. If you don't like the fact that you're getting your ass kicked in college admissions to whites and Asians, then work harder. Work harder. That's how you fix it. What you don't do is be racist. I don't understand why in this country is it so controversial to believe that black folks can compete with everybody else without a damn booster seat. Why is that so controversial? It shouldn't be. I don't have low standards and expectation for black folks. I know what black excellence can do. Okay? I know. That's why I don't believe that black people need a booster seat. But the people that do believe that black people need a booster seat, what they're saying is that you don't have any black excellence. There's no such thing as black excellence. There's no such thing. You can't compete. We live in the 21st century. There are minimal advantages, okay, outside of income, okay, outside of income disparity, because income disparity, that does affect, outcome. But even then, I think culture, valuing education, parental involvement in a child's life, two-parent households that are raising their children right can raise elite students regardless of the race. I believe that. I know that. And that is what we should be pushing. That is what we should be striving for. Okay, colleges can't discriminate anymore based off race. How do we fix that? Nuclear family, two-parent household, putting the responsibility on the parents. Educate your children, and they can become elite students. They can compete, and that way you don't have to discriminate against anybody. But again, these people think that's impossible for you to do. That's impossible for black folks to do. It's impossible. You can't do it. And ultimately, again, this doesn't help black folks. It just sets black people back. Because when you have affirmative action hires, when you have decisions being made based off race, it creates a stigma against black folks. And there are a lot of good black people who work hard, who earn their spots in these elite institutions that should not be smeared or have their credentials questioned because of the color of their skin, because you have these racist admission practices. Trust me, I know them, right? I know them. I know black doctors. I know black lawyers. I know black engineers. And trust me, they didn't get where they are because of affirmative action. They got where they are because they work hard. They put in the work. They were raised in good families. They valued education. It's possible, 100% possible. But the culture has to change. The culture has to be conducive to producing elite students. I don't believe black people are naturally less intelligent than everybody else, therefore they can't compete no matter what. I don't believe that. I believe black folks can compete with anybody given the right structure. And that's what we need to focus on. So again, for people that's upset and mad about this, you can boo-hoo, whine, and cry about it. But at the end of the day, this is a W in the fight against systemic racism in this country. And this is something that the people who are against racism are celebrating. And the people who are for racism are mad, right? They're mad about it. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.